A round of showers or a thunderstorm around later tonight into tomorrow morning. The low tonight 50. Later tomorrow with even cooler clouds to some sunshine. High 72. Mostly sunny and pleasant Sunday. The high 68. With your Dutch Boy Cleaners KTSA AccuWeather forecast, I'm meteorologist Dean DeVoe.
Cloudy and 63 in San Antonio. News headlines coming up at 10:20 on 550 KTSA.
Jeff Riccardi, 9 till 1, 550 KTSA.
KTSA News Time 10:08. It is the weekend because the gang is here. We'll meet the gang of four, kick around the big news stories of the week, invite you in to hang with the gang at 599-5555. They're sneezing, they're coughing, they're clearing their throats. They are so ready to go. They're like the horses inside the starting gate at Retama Park. I must hear the slot machines. All right, on our gang today, we welcome back. And it's, I'm not calling her this, she calls her company PrimaDonna Productions, so she's the head prima donna, Nikki Young. Nikki, welcome back to Gang of Four.
Jack, I am so happy that you let me back in.
Well, it isn't like we were, barring you at the door. You're always welcome here.
I know, but you know what a big fan I am.
Well,
so.
we appreciate that.
Yeah, you're
It's
awesome.
very nice. How have you been? What's new with you?
I'm great. We are doing film and I'm doing theater, so I'm doing everything I absolutely love, and who can get to say that every day? But I know you get to say that every day.
What is PrimaDonna Productions for people that don't know? What do you do?
We make films.
You do everything.
Yeah, we used to be a full-service multimedia marketing and did PR, but I kind of got tired of the government bid kind of situation, and that's not really what I went to school for. We did it for 10 years. It was fun, but now we get to make films and do the creative stuff, right? Which is fun.
All right, because I had lunch yesterday with a guy that knew you, and it's like about every third person I meet knows Nikki Young. It's just unbelievable.
I like to be a part of the community.
All right, so she's here today.
Everyone knows you, Jack.
Not like you.
Oh.
Not like you. And you also, nobody does Twitter like Nikki Young. What's your Twitter name?
At PrimaDonna Prods, P-R-O-D-S, because Productions was too long.
How many followers do you have?
Between everything, I probably have about 8,000.
Wow.
Between Twitter and the Facebook, a combination.
All right, you're right behind Charlie Sheen. Closing in on him. The hot breath of Nikki Young's on the back of his neck. All right, Luis Barrios is with us today. He's also involved in so many things, not just the Los Barrios restaurant empire, but you're one of those guys, Louis, that just whatever interests you, you find a way to be involved in it. You don't sit on the sidelines on anything, right?
That's exactly right. I'm now issue chair for immigration with the Hispanic Chamber, and I'm also education chair for the Hispanic Chamber, so we're doing some great stuff there.
All right, and you've got a charitable event that you're very excited about that you and your sister are involved in.
That's exactly right. It's called North Star Gives, and North Star Mall is doing an event on, March the 24th from 6 to 8, and they have located or kind of found 6 gracious givers. My sister was selected to be one of them, and you select your favorite charity. Diana selected Viola's Huge Heart Foundation, and we are raising money for the foundation. We're selling tickets to the event, $20 pre-sale, $30 at the door, and whoever sells the most tickets is eligible for an extra $1,000, and whoever has the most people attending the event will get an extra $1,000, and there'll be spring fashions, there'll be hors d'oeuvres, there'll be drinks, there'll be camaraderie, lots of fun.
So when I buy a ticket, how do I buy it? In other words, in Diana's name, or how does the credit go to Diana?
Well, you can call us at Los Barrios. We can deliver your stack of tickets, and you can give them out to your listeners, or we can even take those tickets and give them to our friends that can't afford to buy a ticket.
So you're selling the tickets.
We're selling the tickets, and we're trying to get recruit people to show up to the event.
So it's a great event, but you want the greatest number of people at the event to
and raise the most amount of money,
through.
which goes to my mom's foundation
Very
directly.
Nice.
Yes.
Very
Bravo.
nice. All right. Well,
Yes.
Louis, thank you for making time for
Thank
us today
you,
on
sir.
Gang of Four. And another guy that's incredibly busy, Gilbert Garcia, now part of this red-hot startup, Plaza de Armas TX.com. And you just told me off the air you're also now writing a book.
That's right, trying to do both at the same time. I'm writing a book about the 1976 Texas presidential primary, and particularly looking at the Reagan-Ford campaign and how, and I've kind of thought for a long time that it was a really pivotal primary in Texas history, because it was, the state started to really shift from Democrat to Republican. 2 years later, we had a Republican governor elected for the first time in 100 years, and it really elevated Ronald Reagan, because it allowed him to stay in that race and set him up for 1980.
All right, so are you finding that you're able to, are the people you need to talk to still above ground in most cases?
There are some people I've talked to are in their mid-80s. There are some people who are no longer with us, but so far people have been really excited about. Some people say, well, they just feel like the story hasn't really been told. And
Sounds fascinating.
There was a real clash. I think it mirrors what we're seeing between the Tea Party movement now, maybe, and the establishment Republican Party, in that the Reagan movement was kind of the insurgent movement at the time, and the Ford people were the establishment.
Very good. So that book will come out when?
Early next year.
Is there a working title?
I think Reagan's Last Stand: How the 1976 Texas primary changed America, something along those lines.
I think if you put the name Reagan in the book title, you sell a lot of books.
That was the thinking.
That's right.
That's pretty much
Exactly.
it. All right. So Gilbert's here, Lewis is here, Nikki is here. That's our gang today. You can hang with the gang at 599-5555. We were just talking about this before the news, so I don't know if you all heard it, but we were talking with the CEO of Retama Park about how the legislature is moving closer to allowing slot machine gambling at the racetracks. Now, on one level, that's a survival issue for the racetracks. They will be going away soon if they don't have some other alternate means of surviving. But they're arguing this isn't just for us. This is good because Texans are gambling in all the neighboring states, and we're losing all that revenue. What do y'all think about that?
I used to live in Memphis, and we dealt with some of the same issues with gambling in a broader sense, because you had Tunica, Mississippi had established it, and a lot of people were leaving. Tourists would leave Memphis, and they would take buses and go 30, 40 miles into Mississippi. I'm not a gambler, and I'm not really into slot machines, but I look at it as it's something that people can choose to do if they want to. It's entertainment for people, and it will bring in more revenue for the state. It might not bring in as much money as some people would project, but if this is something that people choose to do and they're entertained by it and the state brings a little revenue in, I just don't see a problem with it.
I think in regards to tourism, it's a huge thing. We just talked about how people are always leaving to go places. Now is another reason for people to come to Texas. When people in Asia, when they think of America, they think of three things. They think of New York, California, Hollywood, and Texas, with the cowboys and everything. It's a little cliche, but it gives another reason for people to come to Texas. And being in the creative arts that I am, you talked about how, entertain. Well, I think that also adds more jobs, of course. You're going to have food there, and you're going to have more hotels, but you're also going to have entertainers. And so I think it's a bigger picture.
Now, people are going to say, though, Nikki, people are going to say, okay, fine, but what about all the gambling addiction and what it does to people? The people who gamble the most, for example, the people who play the lottery are often people that can't afford to do that. And they're going to say, we have a study here that says broken homes and domestic violence, and it's all because of the pressures of gambling addiction, and then we're all paying for those social ills. Are the social ills of gambling going to outweigh the benefits of gambling?
Well, let me speak to the other side of the issue. The Texas Restaurant Association is against any type of gambling, VLTs, etc., because restaurants can't compete with free food. They start off with just having the novelty of VLTs, and then all of a sudden it's not enough to bring in all the guests that they need. And so they start offering free food, and restaurants, of course, sell the food. And so, of course, we know it's not free because they're gambling. It's the most expensive lunch or dinner they've ever had. That's one side. The second side is the closer you get to these casinos, the greater the opportunity for addiction, which then leads to embezzlement from their employers. And me being an employer for 30 plus years and having many people embezzle from us, sometimes as big as over $150,000, sometimes $25,000, I know the pitfalls. And so they look at all the plus sides, but what are the minus sides? What's the social cost? Let's look at the net effect. Yes, there's going to be increase of jobs, but there's going to be loss of jobs. And yes, there's going to be money created, but that's going to take away discretionary dollars for other items. So what's the net effect? Nobody will ever tell you the net effect because life is not black or white. It's usually gray.
Well, in regards to the social ills, we could say the same thing for bars. Every bar that opens, we could say the same thing. I hear your point, and I understand.
You serve
that.
liquor, right?
Yes, we do.
What about the social ills of the liquor?
Exactly.
Well, gambling, the new VLT terminals, they say even if you're losing when you play them, you still keep playing for the thrill of it. They say that on 60 Minutes they did an incredible expose that were saying even when people were winning, it took away from the euphoria that those machines now create. Even winning stopped it. They've done a lot of scientific tests. I should have brought a copy of that 60 Minutes report. It's been wonderful.
No, but I mean, is it, at some point, do we just kind of tie ourselves up in knots trying to figure out all the ways, Gilbert, that people can hurt themselves with their own choices? I mean, it's sort of an endless cycle.
And it's probably true that there are people who spend money on this, or who will spend money, who can't afford it, but people spend money on a lot of things, a lot of entertainment that they probably can't afford. That's the person's choice, and if they get themselves into some financial difficulties, that's the choice they make. But I mean, in the 80s, when kids were playing video games, it was addictive. Now kids playing Wii games or whatever. There are all kinds of things that can have an addictive effect if people can't control their impulses. But I think that we have to allow people to make those decisions for themselves.
See, it's funny to me to hear this argument, Jackie, and I'll tell you why. Probably the most destructive thing I've seen happen to American families and households in recent years is this economy itself. And this economy itself was destroyed by the housing bubble, which in turn was the creation of the government and government policies. So when I hear somebody like you, who sounds very intelligent, say that's what we have the government for, and then you say, if personal choice gets people into trouble, maybe we have to curb personal choice. I don't know what plane of reality you're living on, but this very government you're trusting is the one that got us into this trouble. Okay. All right. Gang, how do we control other people's bad habits from visiting unwanted expense and consequences on us? How do we do that?
Well, that's why there are social services that exist. I mean, there are organizations that do support services like that. On the back of lottery tickets, there's an 800 number to call if there is a problem. I mean, we can't...
I'll bet that rings off the hook, right?
It's the same thing. It's like, you can't control... I mean, it's good to have, laws in place, like drunk driving laws. I agree with what she says, and that's why we have legislators, but we can't control every single decision that someone's going to make.
You can't be immune. You can't be immune from the bad choices other people make. I mean... there's no utopia where you are completely and totally under the influence of only your own decisions, right?
Only on Star Trek.
Well, that's true. We'll have the debate, and there is places where gamblers can go, whether it's Louisiana or Mississippi or wherever. We'll have the debate, and we'll let the people decide. But let's look at it objectively, and let's look at the pluses and the minuses. And at the end of the day, we decide as a people to do it, and let's do it. We're
going to talk some more about this, take some more phone calls, many other things to cover with our gang. But first, into the newsroom on KTSA at 1023. 1027 on KTSA. Gang of Four is underway for a Friday. Gilbert Garcia, Louis Barrios, Nikki Young, all right here. And we're talking about, for starters, although we're going to move on to some other things, this slot machine question for Texas. Yeah, I mean, Louis, I think you're right in saying that ultimately it's best if we decide and if we hear all the arguments pro and con. But I think there's something very elusive about this hope we have that we can be spared the consequences of other people's decisions. Good luck with that. But that hasn't happened yet. And one of the reasons we're under the influence of other people's bad decisions is because of a really bad decision we've made, which is to allow for the growth of government and the spreading of the pain and the misery of people's bad decisions. If we didn't have a government that told us, you're all responsible for this person's medical bills, then maybe we wouldn't feel like we were ultimately going to be hurt if that person becomes a compulsive gambler. I mean, there's an ultimate, you can follow this all back to our decision to be dependent on government.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Gilbert.
I was just going to say, too, I think there's also an issue where I think sometimes all of us are guilty sometimes of being somewhat intolerant of other people's entertainment choices. If something isn't appealing to us, we think, well, we don't need that. And but this is something that's appealing to other people. It's not something that would mean a lot to me, but it's entertaining to many people. And what were you going to say, Louis?
Well, I was going to say that after World War II, when the baby boomers were first in their infancy, and corporate America was doing wonderful because we went from making cars to tanks back to cars, and everything was just raging. The economy was raging.